Compliments of the season, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Headlines. Nigeria's war on terror has entered a new and controversial phase. On Christmas Day, joint Nigeria-United States airstrikes hit suspected ISIS-linked camps in Sokoto, following intelligence shared by Nigerian authorities and executed by U.S. Africa Command. Now, the strikes reportedly killed multiple terrorists, but they also reignited global debate about sovereignty, foreign military involvement, and how Nigeria's security crisis is framed abroad. Even more explosive was a post by U.S. President Donald Trump celebrating the strikes while making no reference to Nigeria's cooperation and repeating claims of Christian genocide that Nigerian officials insist are false. At home, Senator Aliu Ndume is now asking President Tinubu to expand these joint operations to the northeast Sambisa, Lake Chad, and the Mandara Mountains, long-standing strongholds of Boko Haram and ISWAP. So what really happened in Sokoto? What does this mean for Nigeria's counter-terrorism strategy? And is the global narrative helping or hurting the country's security objectives? Let's begin with security expert Oyekachi Adekoya, who joins me virtually on the program this evening. Mr. Adekoya, compliments of the season to you. Thank you for joining us again. President Trump acknowledged the strike, but if you look at his message on social media, he ignored Nigeria's cooperation and repeated claims of attacks on Christians. How damaging is this narrative to Nigeria's counterterrorism credibility?
I think we're all used to President Trump and his antics for now, so I don't think it makes much of a difference. So you want to look at the statement from the Texas, and you want to look at the statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and weigh that government-to-government communication as what it should be. President Trump has his domestic audience to pan to. So I don't think we should read much into. Unfortunately, it is what it is. You can't read too much into his statements, but you need to look at actions on the ground and what it is translating to. So I think that's what we want to focus on, not on the statement of President Trump as President Trump, but you want to look at the statements of the American government and that of the Nigerian government, and then weigh the direction of things on the ground. That will be my assessment.
I'm sure you've also heard critics say foreign airstrikes on Nigerian soil raise sovereignty concerns. From your experience, where's the line between strategic partnership and overreach?
Well, to wit that you can have cooperation and collaboration and coordination of effort amongst nations. Yeah, in the twin hours of the 9/11 attacks, we saw the American government galvanize relationships. Even though the attacks happened in country, they had to respond out country. It didn't diminish the U.S. in any shape or form, though it had suffered some kind of attack. So you want to look at the international laws and diplomacy and the realm of collaboration. There's nothing out of the ordinary. However, it doesn't do our reputation too good on the African continent if we say we're the giants of Africa and we cannot mop up issues at home. It does, however, highlight the need for the modernization of our fighting force and the onshoring of our own defense capability and the creation of a local defense industry that can meet our local needs and project our national interests, whether it be on the African continent or outside the African shores. I think the conversation should be pointing towards there, to be saying, what are the lessons we can learn from finding ourselves here? Nifemi, we didn't just show up here. It's over the years, successive military rule, the degrading systemically of the Air Force, the Navy, our air assets, naval platforms. So a lot of conversations we should be having now introspectively and then looking forward. So I think those are the issues we want to focus on.
The senator representing Borno South, Aliu Ndume, wants these strikes extended to places like Sambisa, Lake Chad, and Waterview. Militarily, would airstrikes alone make a decisive difference in the Northeast?
It will not, Nifemi, but it will do significant damage. It will significantly degrade the fighting capability of the insurgents. If done correctly, it will sever their communication lines and then impair on their effectiveness. Remember that boots on the ground is not the problem that the Nigerian government has or the Nigerian fighting force has. What we've had over the years is the lack of sustained ISR. And in modern day war fighting, I mean, there's no need being around the bush. Drone surveillance, persistent aerial surveillance, and importantly, reconnaissance attack, the ability to strike at a target opportunity when that opportunity presents itself instantly, and even going into the realms of combined arms warfare. So Nigeria is not yet there. And sadly, Nifemi, we have federal colleges of technology, universities of technology, technical colleges, and we're not producing squads. It doesn't take so much to achieve ISR saturation. So what we lack and what the Americans can bring to the party is persistent surveillance, providing pinpoint information, sharing those, and then coordinating strikes. Nifemi, the bigger problem is that over the last 15, 20 years, we've procured weapons from the Americans and we've been asking for the permission to fire some of those munitions in the Northwest. You know, the Americans give us these weapons with a limit where we can fire, how we can fire. And even when we come for rearmament, there's also conversations under the constraints of the ley law. So there are a number of issues. Like I said in my opening statement, we didn't find ourselves here by error. It's by years of neglect. In 1986, 85 thereabout, Nigeria produced over 60 Air-B2 aircrafts. We were poised to become an aviation powerhouse in Africa. Some of those aeronautical engineers are still there. Some of them are working with foreign national governments, even some in the US. We even have Nigerians supporting the US missile systems or missile defense systems. So it is not for lack of talent, it's a lack of coordination and deliberate national security planning. So what the Americans will bring to the fight for us at this stage is the platforms that we need to conduct surgical pinpoint accurate strike while our soldiers go in to do either blocking operations or mop-up operations. I think that's where the collaboration will help us. It doesn't change anything to our fighting force.
Well, the senator also went ahead to call for intelligence sharing, logistics training, and attack helicopters. And there are conversations as to whether or not all of this in time will shift the balance on the ground. And the big question on whether Nigeria is winning the security fight but losing the information war internationally. That's our time, Mr. Adegoke. Thank you so much for talking to us. Nigerians are looking forward to some new strategy and indeed some good news in the area of winning this war in the new year. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, when global headlines scream US airstrikes in Nigeria, the reaction abroad is often instant fear. There are concerns in area of hesitation and even questions about safety here in Nigeria. But does that headline reflect lived reality on the ground with the dirty December that we're talking about, the Lagos, and quite a number of people even trooping in from outside the country? What we're doing now is shifting our lens from missiles to messaging, from military action to global perception. Let's bring in John James Olomo, who is founder and CEO of Tribal Tapestry. It's a cultural bridge between Nigeria and the African-American diaspora, and he works directly with visitors, investors, and cultural tourists. I'm told he was recently in Nigeria himself. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
So when this news broke of U.S. military action inside Nigeria, what was the immediate reaction from diaspora communities you engage with?
Yes, the immediate reaction from the diaspora is, oh my God, Nigeria is killing Christians, or oh my God, Nigeria is now being bombed. And so the messaging in the diaspora is it doesn't reflect the reality of what's taking place right there in Nigeria. One thing I want diaspora to know is that Nigeria is not one single security environment. It's a very large country, and there are regional realities no different than the U.S. For example, in the United States on January 6th, President Trump directed people to storm the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Now, if someone overseas were to look at that, they would say, oh my goodness, America is being stormed. But it wasn't America, it was Washington, D.C., and it was one region, which was Capitol Hill. And so the situation is pretty much the same right now. In Nigeria, there are surgical strikes taking place with precision in northern Nigeria, in the northwest corridor of Nigeria, in Sokoto. And so Nigeria remains very much safe for diaspora to visit and travel, particularly through Lagos and the Southwest Cultural Corridor.
I'm wondering if you think that the average diasporan understand this reality. How do you explain to someone in Atlanta or London that Nigeria under attack does not mean Lagos, Abeokuta, or Ibadan are unsafe?
Exactly. You know, when we enter Nigeria, we bring lots of guests. We call them homecomers to Nigeria. And we are entering through Lagos. It's very safe. That is the international gateway right into Lagos, Nigeria, which is the beating heart of Africa. There, things remain active. They're very stable, heavily traveled every day. You have people going to work and church and what have you, going about their daily responsibilities. And so what determines safety isn't news headlines. It's structure, it's clear itineraries, local knowledge, and trusted relationships that matter. That matters more than anything. And as long as diaspora or visitors have that in place, they will be just fine.
Is there a sense to which Nigeria's problem partly is that international audiences simply don't understand its size, its diversity, and internet geography? Because we've seen some funny videos online where people think Africa is a country.
Oh my goodness, yes. So many people do actually think Africa is a country, which is unfortunate. It is a continent. There are several countries. Nigeria is a country with several of its own states, no different than the U.S. I think that it's important for people to understand reality and lived experiences and separate those lived experiences from news headlines. For example, we brought some people to Nigeria earlier this year, and one lady on our tour, she got teary-eyed, she was upset, and I said, hey, what's going on with you today? And she said, we have been lied to our whole life. We have been told Africans didn't like us, Nigerians didn't like us, that Nigeria wasn't safe. She said, since the moment I set foot on ground, I have felt welcomed, open arms. I felt nothing but love from Nigerians. Everywhere I go, I see billboards of people that look like me. And she went on to say that just the environment of being in Nigeria was psychologically and emotionally healing for her own spirit. So realities like that are far different than the news headlines. And so those lived experiences become very important, and we need to share them on behalf of other diaspora.
Perception is everything, especially when you consider messaging from the U.S. president, his immediate reaction to the attack in Sokoto, talking about how he launched a powerful and deadly strike, and how the U.S. is capable of doing and executing numerous perfect strikes, even threatening more, and using expressions like the slaughtering of Christians in worldview. For someone considering travel, business, or cultural exchange, how powerful is that psychological effect of foreign military involvement, even if the action is limited, as we know it?
Right. Nigeria cooperating with the United States isn't inherently a problem. Cooperation can be beneficial as long as it's clearly defined and Nigeria's sovereignty is respected. And I think that's been upheld so far, is that Nigerian sovereignty has been protected. And that is very important. We don't want a situation where a person like Donald Trump, to be frank with you, he can be an ally today. And I think Nigerians need to understand what they are dealing with in terms of someone like Donald Trump. Because many Nigerians welcome U.S. involvement. That's fine as long as that involvement remains in respect to Nigeria's sovereignty, and that involvement has to remain surgical and precise in those strikes. Because otherwise, you have a president like Donald Trump who's very unpredictable. He can be an ally today, but frankly, Nigeria's biggest area boy tomorrow if he is not held in check and if Nigeria's sovereignty is not respected.
You know, you've shared testimonials from visitors who say they felt safe visiting Nigeria. Why is the lived experience more powerful right now than official government statements? And precisely how well is that doing vis-a-vis the news headlines everywhere? Because you tune into international channels now, the headline is how, U.S. struck a place in Nigeria, in its fight against terrorism.
Most of what we're hearing on the ground in the U.S. is, at first there was a little bit of panic. I think people are beginning to understand now that the strikes are surgical and it's not the entire country. But I heard you make a statement earlier, which is very important, that Nigeria is winning right now in this fight against terrorism. But I think they are losing the war when it comes to information and how Nigeria is being framed and postured in the international perception. And so the more we get information out there to the public and let them know that Nigeria is very safe to visit, you need to stick to Lagos and the cultural corridors, that becomes important. Nigeria's biggest asset is its diaspora. Nigeria's biggest voice is its diaspora in the US, in the UK, abroad, because they can help stabilize the messaging with the reality going on the ground.
During moments of intense global scrutiny like this, precisely what would you say Nigeria isn't doing enough in managing its image?
Well, what we would love to see Nigeria do, at Tribal Tapestry, you guys know that we connect people to Nigeria through their DNA. We help them determine their tribes and their places of origin. And we would like the government of Nigeria to give our DNA family citizenship based on their DNA. And here's why, to answer your question. When you do that, frankly, you improve Nigeria's brand image. You convert African Americans into brand ambassadors for the country of Nigeria. About 50% of African Americans actually have Nigerian DNA. And so when you give them something, when you give them citizenship, or you give them some form of national status, you now have an ally. And you have an ally in the West. You have an ally in the form of Nigeria's biggest and most economically viable tribe, which is the African American tribe, if you will. They spend $1.1 trillion a year in consumer spending. And if you give them citizenship and make them a stakeholder in the country, in the nation of Nigeria, now they have a vested interest in protecting home. It's no different than Jewish Americans. They extend political support from America to Israel, and it allows Israel to defend itself a lot better. So if African Americans were granted dual citizenship in Nigeria based on their DNA, that political support would extend from the United States of America to Nigeria, and the brand of Nigeria would remain sovereign and protected in times like this, where you have these informational warfare games taking place. But Nigeria needs to leverage its diaspora in order to protect its brand.
You've described the diaspora as a bridge, and perhaps your expectation is that African, American, Afro-diaspora engagement would help counter fear-based narratives. But precisely what do you see this citizenship do? Do you intend it to push investments by merely granting citizenship? What impact or what implication do you see that have in the short and long term?
I appreciate the question. The implication on the short and long term would be very powerful. We can look at countries like Ghana, who has done some form of citizenship based on descent. We can look at Sierra Leone. Their country has improved quite dramatically. If we look at Nigeria, Nigeria sits in a very unique position. Number one, it's the beating heart of Africa, right? It's the biggest economy. When people think of Africa these days, many times they reference Nigeria. And so giving citizenship to African Americans based on their DNA would allow that $1.1 trillion of spending power, percentages of that would siphon into Nigeria. Frankly, 10% of the African American consumer spending, if Nigeria were to tap just 10% of that flowing into the country through deposits, real estate investment, business startups, and things of that nature, you would triple Nigeria's GDP. You see, so the long-term implications are quite powerful for Nigeria's economy, but also for its cultural protection and branding.
For international viewers watching this right now, what should they know about Nigeria beyond the breaking news sticker?
Right. What I would love for international viewers to know is one of the most welcoming places that you can go in Africa is Nigeria. You know, right now it's funny. Trending in the U.S., you have white Americans who are holding Nigerian-themed weddings. They're even holding Yoruba-style weddings with the head garments, the clothing, etc. And so Nigeria's soft power is its biggest asset. Nigeria's soft power, its cultural power, is Nigeria's biggest weapon. And so we should be leveraging that. Dirty December is growing, it's trending. I think next year will be bigger than this one. And so these are the things that we have to continue to focus on and get the word out to the diaspora.
I like your cap, by the way. I'm wondering if that's how you rock it on a suit on a normal day, or you wear it because you're appearing on TV. What's your story, by the way? Are you Nigerian? Did you trace your... Did DNA help you find your way back home?
Yes. Believe it or not, yes. There are many photos of me on a regular basis in the U.S., and this is definitely the way that I dress. This is who I am. For myself, it took me many years to trace my roots, and I finally found myself in the Yoruba tribe of southwestern Nigeria. That took about 7 years for me. After that, I formed a company, Tribal Tapestry, so that other people could do in a matter of 2 or 3 months what took me 7 years. From there, I went further into Ikorodu, which is where my bloodline links me to, through the Olomo Mosene family. I was titled there as Basheto Iparabo Sile of Ikorodu Kingdom, which means the pathfinder who leads the diaspora to their origin and their source. My bloodline by birth connects me to the Shanlu royal family of Imota. And so I'm a prince there. And when we bring people to Nigeria to visit, we bring them through those cultural corridors of Ikorodu, Imota, Shasha, Ile-Ife, and that creates a very safe environment for our visitors also, and it respects their cultural dignity because they are also on their ancestral journey.
Interesting story. We've completely run out of time. We'll probably find some other time to explore this further. John James Lomo, founder, CEO, Tribal Tapestry. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That's our show today, everyone. Remember, you can watch it again at midnight and 6 a.m. tomorrow. Compliments of the season. I am Nifebi Opuntoye.